the camera always had a purpose, and every cut needed to have a real purpose. But the story is so much told through Rafe's eyes and ears. And it's almost, in a way, Stanley references a chess game in the beginning. To me, the movie was like a chess game.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a cardinal finds himself at the center of a conspiracy in director Edward Berger's dramatic thriller, Conclave. The film follows Cardinal Lawrence, who is tasked with leading one of the world's most ancient events, the selection of a new pope. Surrounded by powerful religious leaders in the halls of the Vatican, he soon uncovers a trail of deep secrets that could shake the very foundation of the Roman Catholic Church. In addition to Conclave, Berger's other directorial credits include the feature films All Quiet on the Western Front, All My Loving, and Jack, the movie for television A Good Summer, the miniseries Patrick Melrose, and episodes of Your Honor and The Terror. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Berger spoke with director Jay Roach about filming Conclave. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hello. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to apologize that I'm wearing a dinner suit, but I was forced into it. No, I dressed up for you.
It looks great, and I'm going to talk about clothes in this movie, so it's appropriate. So
Perfect.
We'll get into it. I've got to walk in at the last minute. I've seen it a couple times now, and I got to walk in, and I think we will have a few spoilers. So there's a couple of spoiler alerts. I hope that's okay for everybody. But one of my favorite moments in the film was when Isabella Rossellini, gives some important information and undoes John Lithgow's character, and then curtsies, and I saw everyone laughed and applauded, and I was like, oh, this is what it's like to see this in a big theater, because I'd only seen it twice, and I just wanted to say it's such a beautiful film and suspenseful and moving, but it's also really entertaining, and I got proof just now watching a little bit of it with this crowd, so congratulations.
Thank you.
How did it start? Well, I read that it took a long time to get going. What drew you to it? Was it the book? Was it Peter Straughn's script? What was the magnetism?
It was, I think you know how it is. The first impression is the team. Yeah. And the team was Tessa Ross, who gave me a call, the producer, who's a wonderful person, who's sort of a legend in England, or worldwide, I would say. A wonderful producer. She gave me a call. We wanted to work together a couple times. She sent me a couple of scripts which I never liked. And then I said, Tessa, I can't do those, but let's find something else. And then she finally called and said, I think I have something that you might like. And I said, who wrote it? And she said, Peter Strachan. And I immediately thought, I have to read it. It was a first draft, but Peter he's a really precise, simple writer, very humble person. And to me, the best writer in the world. He's got a soul. And what he does so well is he not only does a great plot that feels like you can turn the pages of it, but his soul comes into the movie. And in this case, he puts it into Ralph Fiennes' eyes, or his arc, his core character arc, this arc of doubt, this journey of doubt. And there was one line in the script that I really liked, and that kind of made me go, this is something I should engage with and start talking to Tessa and Peter about. This is about 6 years ago. And Peter had written in the stage directions, he had written, out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made. And that is kind of the theme of the movie, and that I knew I could have a good conversation with him.
It is, it's also, you seem to connect with the main character of the story so closely. It seemed personal, even though it's obviously something that's happening with global implications. What was your personal connection to what Lawrence was going through this journey? What drew you to that?
I can tell you a great story because it's going to relate to a person you have worked with recently, Florian Hoffmeister, a wonderful DP. We were shooting. So as a director, you think when you start and grow up and you have to be assertive and you have to be sort of a leader and make decisions and people do what you say and all these things. You know, when you start out, and that's basically insecurity. You know, you mask it with, it's got to be this way and so forth until you realize. And then I worked with Florian, but inside I always felt, it's got to do with my education. I had a really, strict parents and so forth. And that's how you have to appear, sort of as a man, but inside I always felt like I needed time to make decisions and I wanted to think it through and I wanted to weigh the pros and cons and actually discuss the pros and cons because, the movie making, there's no recipe. We don't know, if we all knew, we all had great movies, but usually we don't, and sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't. And even if you make a decision, you're only 51% sure, you sort of, it weighs to the pro. You kind of go, okay, I think it's that way. And it's okay, then let's run that way. But to get to that, it takes a little bit of time. And I was shooting with Florian a series in like about 10 years ago or so, or 8 years ago in Budapest. And he was suddenly voicing, like, I don't know, Edward, I don't know, like, should the light go there or there? And I was like, what are you doubting it? If it's going to be any good? And she said, I constantly doubt, because Florian is sort of this very open, wonderful person. And that somehow gave me permission to say, it's absolutely fine to have doubt is a good thing. And I started embracing it as a strength or, considering it as a strength if you can talk about it.
I will say, having just worked with him, his doubts and my doubts were almost too much for. we weren't super great at reassuring each other all the time. But that's something that I was sort of trying to poke around about this because it seems like you connected to that challenge that Lawrence has in this story of getting a whole bunch of doubters, in essence, really a bunch of people with their own agendas, their own questions about how it's going, to sync up and do this incredibly important thing. And for me, it felt like an anxiety dream of directing because it's so hard to be that confident. And Lawrence does step up. He's very, when he says to Adeyemi, you will not be the Pope, he says it with such certainty and is in a situation where he's not certain about anything. So I wondered if you connected with that as a director. And that
absolutely. I actually didn't think about it that way, but now that you analyze it subliminally, I definitely did. He's sort of the director at the center of this, and a very reluctant director. Actually, he says the entire time, I want to be, actually, can I go to this monastery? Which probably most of the time you're thinking when you're on set, can we go to this monastery and just, but because, it's one of the, but what are we talking? It's one of the, it's the best job in the world that we get to, have a whole bunch of people trust us, and we start to trust them, and we get to, create a world in a way that we don't have access to.
Yeah. So, and let's talk about some of your collaborators. Obviously, I'll talk about the actors in a second. But what about the casting process? I was curious, how did you get to Ralph Fiennes? Did you work with Nina Gold and the other teammates on the casting team? And what was that like? And also, while you're talking about that must have been going on during the 6 years that it took to get this up and running. And casting is always a big part of momentum to get something going. What took so long in that to get it going? And how was the casting part of that momentum you finally got to?
I think I started it about the same time as All Quiet, the movie I did before. So we did it in parallel, and All Quiet was faster. So that this project got a little bit slowed down by that. But also we weren't ready with the script yet. We just kept going on the script. Peter wrote another thing, and then we came back after All Quiet. and kept working on it. And at some point during that process, I mean, in the original script and in the book, that main character is Italian, because most cardinals are today still Italian. I think it's like half Italian, half rest of the world, something like that. A little bit more than half rest of the world. But obviously, you know, to be realistic, to make a movie like this, I mean, which Italian is going to play it? Yeah, there's not that many Italians who can shoulder this budget or this movie that you can recognize on the poster and say, okay, I'm going to go watch it. But we were very open to anybody, any Catholic, but possibly Catholic actor that could do this, you know, and from England, America, Spain, France, Poland, it didn't really matter. And we were thinking the whole time. And at some point I woke up about 3 years in maybe, and I was thinking, you know, because I realized the character is more in the background. He doesn't have the most lines. He doesn't like the limelight. He wants to be in a monastery. He's reluctant, you know, and Rafe can be that, and he can very much, as we need to know what he's thinking the whole time, Rafe is great in expressing that with his eyes, with his thoughts. They're so transparent on his face. He really invites us to understand what's going on behind his eyes. And so that's, and then we just called him. And then it really picked up. It just took 2 weeks for him to read it and say, oh, this is great, let's meet. And then it was quite fast, yeah, like a year from then.
The rest of the cast fell in pretty soon after that.
Yeah. You know, you kind of want the opposite of Rafe for Stanley's role. Yeah. And Stanley feels very much, you know, Rafe is very like a deep kind of, you know, really thinking about things. And Stanley just, come on, let's just do it. And he's sort of American in English, you know. And in fact, to the extent that Stanley on set, I would look at the monitor and think like, oh, he's not doing anything. Like I would turn to Peter Strawn, who sat next to me, and it was actually a great help that Peter was there.
He was always there. Yeah.
He was there. He was lazy for the non-dialogue scenes. He slept in. He said, "Oh, I'm coming late tomorrow. You have no dialogue." He wasn't interested in the images, but for the dialogue, he was there for like 6 weeks out of the 8. Mm-hmm. And so I would turn to Peter and say, like, "He's not doing it. Is he doing enough?" And Peter, I don't know. And then eventually I'll go to Stanley and say like, well, maybe you do a little bit of this. And he said, I thought I did it, but yeah, I'll do it again. And then he did it again, still the same thing. And then I find it I saw it in the editing room. You know, I see it. He's this magical actor. With Rafe, you see it. You know, look him in the eyes and you see it. And Stanley just has this utter confidence that everything he just needs to think it, and we feel it. It's absolutely amazing. And then slowly, Isabella was the next, and John Lithgow and Lucien Masmati, and it just sort of evolved.
What a cast! Though I love the contrast between Tucci's approach, which is so confident, as opposed to Rafe, who's just a mess a lot of the time in private. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about that again too. It's a film with such a strong and clear point of view. And even in this, you can start to get into how you designed the film, even in the way the film is so beautifully composed, shot to shot to shot, to show institutional strength and authenticity and ancient, you know, heritage and tradition as compared to these very, very, very close shots of Rafe, just in truly a soul at stake. I always say there's just no great stories where there's not just one soul at stake, but there are even Stanley Tucci's character and John Lithgow say they all have a soul at stake, literally and figuratively. How did you work into the design with your cinematographer, with your production designer, to reflect the strong point of view that you wanted to achieve?
Well, everything, first of all, thank you for seeing that, or for recognizing that in the film. We really tried to be very thoughtful of where to put the camera. And we spent a long time, actually I spent a really long time location scouting, because it wasn't so easy to find all these bits and pieces. We shot all over Rome in many different places. And obviously the ecclesiastical architecture is, or the Catholic architecture tries to make you feel small, like by being very vast, and you're this tiny, insignificant person in this vast building. So obviously that had to be part of it. But the story is so much told through Rafe's eyes and ears. And so I needed to be, it just somehow, it always felt, the camera always had a purpose. Whenever we moved the camera to a new spot, it just had a real purpose to move. And every cut needed to have a real purpose. And it's almost, in a way, it's Stanley references a chess game in the beginning. He says, like, can I have this chessboard? And to me, the movie was like a chess game. So Rafe is here, in the Sistine Chapel, for example, and he's going to look at John Lithgow over there. And so the camera I knew I needed one shot here. I mean, as simple as that almost. And then he looks over there. I knew he needed one shot there, but then also one here to creep into his brain. And when I did like 7 shots on Rafe while I did one on Stanley. So it's just it just evolved naturally. I did about 8 weeks of shot listing with a cinematographer in storyboarding the scenes in the Sistine Chapel, because I was afraid that they would become repetitive.
So you had pre-edited the film in your mind before you shot it. I mean, it's
very much,
so precise.
Very much pre-edited. Even if it's just a shot list, I don't do a shot list. Okay, I need a wide shot, mid shot. I really go through the scene and I'm going to cut here not that I shoot that way. I shoot the entire scene for each size, but I cut on the page. I say, okay, we're going to cut from that. We'll start on the close-up, we'll cut to the wide shot, and then the editor does something else. But at least I want to have that plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, then we try. But very often we actually revert back to that plan. At least I want to, when he's edited something and it's different from what I had planned, then I'm like, why the hell did he do that? And I look at my plan, and I go, oh, it's actually better what he did. Or let's try that version that I had in my head. Or I remember, usually actually on set, there's some shot that somehow you realize, you watch it and go like, wow, that's a great way into the scene. We're going to start with that. And suddenly it changes. So basically it's to say you can plan as much as you want. It's going to change, right?
Yeah. But do you think when you see it now, does a lot of it match that plan? It must, because you had to be able to get that kind of precision and those kind of compositions, you had to know what you were doing shot for shot.
A lot of it is actually, and especially the storyboarded scenes are pretty much like I storyboarded them. You could probably put it side by side and it's fairly accurate. Yeah.
One of the things that I feel is very strong in how you designed it is the predicament that Lawrence is in. And the Pope dies, you feel his emotion so strongly. You capture this kind of, connection to how much it matters. You see that shot of the Pope's body in the ambulance as it's, just you feel it all from Rafe's point of view, but he as a lonely person, and I felt his loneliness, I felt his insecurity and his doubt, is up against such a majestic, again, a kind of overwhelming institution. And it seemed that not just the shots of him were so strong and important from the point of view, but setting up the predicament of the Sistine Chapel. There's no light and everyone's stuck together. And I mean, how did you think of it that way? Of what it's not just him emotionally, but what he's up against, and how you would portray what he was up against? Oh, absolutely. And by the way, everything kind of, I feel like with the movie, almost every decision was based on the fact what is inside of Rafe's stomach at this point, where the camera goes. It always reflects, actually always thinking back to how does he feel inside, and down to the production design beforehand. For example, we knew we were going to shoot in the Sistine Chapel or build the Sistine Chapel. So I thought, okay, the design of his rooms, the Casa Santa Marta, the hotel where they stay in, basically,
The real one is really ugly. You don't want to build that. So we knew we're going to have to design something like that. And I thought, in the reality, the shutters are not going to go down, in the real Conclave. They are allowed to look out the window, I think. But I felt it'd be great to sort of represent Rafe's inner state, just to make it feel like a prison. And when he closes the door goes shh and sucks all the air out of the room, and all we hear is the hum of the neon light and his breath. Yeah. And so that we're really always with him. Sound, design, that design was basically, we designed it like a jail cell, so that at the end, when he opens the window and lets the air back in and light back in and sun and life back in and female laughter back in, that it almost like that the weight gets lifted off your shoulders and his shoulders. And so I think every decision was based on Rafe's feeling towards this massive task that he's up against, and also he plays it that way. I mean, very often he kind of stands a little bit like this, like almost like it's
weight on his shoulders. There's this incredible moment when the window breaks through that explosion, and you emphasize the dust in the air, which brings me to one of the things I wanted to get to, which the migration and sort of progress of the clothing throughout the story. I noticed it in All Quiet on the Western Front too, how interested you were in the clothing, the way the uniforms are, remade and brought back to the next line of troops after the first line dies. But here, when that dust lands on their shoulders and all of that pristine authority that's captured in the way you shot how they dressed and how you show him getting dressed, and then you sort of almost you sort of revere it, but then you're also sort of making fun of it too when you see the Cossacks. Is that how you pronounce it? Hanging in their dry cleaning, plastic. And I wanted to ask you, how did you work with your costume designer and to establish all that?
She is one of my closest collaborators by now, and I can't imagine making a film and not taking her, because she's. I met her on All Quiet, and she builds these books with each character, and she shows you the progression of the costume and how to build. And the thing that she does, she came in and said, like, she has this very soft spoken, you might wonder why a costume designer is interested in a movie with uniforms. And she said, because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to inject personality and character, or that's the challenge. I want to inject personality and character in these uniforms. And these are uniforms. Quiet was uniforms. She made everyone a character. And here it's, starting from the crosses, from the way, from the design of real cardinals, they're going to they are tailoring their cassocks, and they're all a little bit different. But just a tiny bit, just to give their personality to it. They choose their own crosses. They choose their own rings. They have this white thing above the cassock that is slightly different. The problem with the real costumes is we could have and there was a lot of pressure just to take the real ones, because Paolo Sorrentino made a series in the Vatican, and there were like 100 cardinal robes hanging there for us to just take. And we said, like, arrogantly, we said, we don't want Paolo Sorrentino's cassocks. Yeah, no, but for a reason, because we tested the red fabric, and the real ones, they are quite orangey, and if I may say, I hope there's no cardinal here. If I may say, they are a little bit cheap looking. They used to look better in the 50s and 60s. Before this crazy thing, Vatican II, was done, before they modernized the church, they used to look better. Or in the Renaissance, they had really almost like this kind of, red, thick, blood red fabric. And now it's a bit orangey and it's a bit polyester-y. So we didn't want polyester. And I love the shot, for example, and it's only in the movie because Stefan, the DOP, loved the fabric so much as well. When Rafe gets dressed, he just lingers on the red of the fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Lizzie bringing fabric and us testing different fabrics and thinking this red is so rich. And so somehow, now when you read reviews, a lot of people talk about the red, and that is the costume. If we had taken the real one, then it would have never mentioned it because it's too orange.
Oh, and it's an important the crimson, the cardinal color of it is important. Partly because I looked it up and said, why are they red? And they're red because it's a statement that they would be willing to die for their faith, and so it has to be a kind of almost blood red, and it is beautiful. But it is also, because it's uniformed, it is intimidating, and it gives authority against doubt. And that's again what I think is one of the wonderful themes of the whole film, is that it's religion is often a way to help people cope with their doubts, and the ritual is some way of doing. Anyway, you seem to have gotten that and cared about it very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, can I tell one
Sure.
costume anecdote? It's with Rafe. Rafe is someone who's very obsessed with authenticity, with realism. I am too, to an extent, especially in a world like this, because we don't know much about the doors close. And no cardinal will tell us what goes on in that voting process. So it's almost a license to invent and to create and make a movie. And so while I was talking to Lizzie about, let's chuck out the real cardinal robes, they're ugly. let's make our own ones, and let's make. So Rafe goes and meets someone, and that person calls him to the next room, and there's a cardinal robe laid out on the bed. And Rafe tries it on, and you know how it is when actors put their costumes on they start finding the character and they fall in love with it. So he sends me this picture, like this, but he texts me this picture of him in the cardinal's robe, beaming from face to so I found it, and I thought oh no. I'm going to have to tell him. I'm going to have to talk him out of it. And it was a real thing to tell him, to explain to him why we needed that other costume. In the end, he was very happy with it, but it took a little bit.
I was going to ask you, we just have a little more time, but the authenticity is an issue, right? I mean, you have to decide how authentic and how much you need to change something to serve the dramatic tension of something. You also have to have the audience feel like you're getting it right. How did you approach that? What kind of research or what kind of consultation did you have?
Well, first of all, we have a really good, the novel that this is based on, Robert Harris, is a very, very good researcher. He had a wealth of research, very good access to the Vatican, and he shared all of it with us. And then, but mainly, I had a great religion advisor next to me, a religion teacher, Francesco Bonomo from Rome, who knew a lot, who knew the way, what happens when the Pope dies, the ring, the sealing of the apartment. He knew everything, because that's also public knowledge. And he knew certain things in the voting process are also public knowledge, or have, that it's shared, like what oath they say and how they vote. And so we stuck to that because I'm interested in that. And it is just fascinating to look at. And I wanted to share that with you. And then, but some things I said, what would they do here? And he said, you know what? No one knows. Mm-hmm. And so that gives you I love the fact that we have a great team, ADs and costume designers and production designers, and we all work together on every single frame and give our best and create a reality. None of it is real. And so I think there's always license to invent and create, as long as it feels authentic and somehow, yeah.
Yeah, I think you made me feel like when the details of the voting. I've shot political thrillers, and making voting interesting is not easy, and to all the thing of running the red thread through them and put the way they lift the little lid on the voting container, and every single detail made me think, well, they must have, this feels like they got it right.
That's true.
All real stuff.
Apparently it's true.
Yeah.
Until some cardinal comes and says, we don't do it like that anymore. We have iPads with, maybe they do it that way.
Well, in closing, is there anything else you want to say about your experience making this film, or how it's going in this phase of the connection to your audience?
Well, maybe. I mean, first of all, thank you for coming, and thank you for taking the time to. I love your films, and it's a big honor to talk to you. Thank you so much. And maybe just closing. To me, it was important making this movie in Rome. You wake up, and it's a big luxury to make a movie in Rome. You know, I kind of promised my crew to, after the mud, that I'd take them to a nicer place. You know? And I thought, like, let's go to Rome. And so, so I'd have my espresso in the morning, and I'd look out the window, and there would be nuns having a coffee downstairs, or priests smoking and discussing, or an archbishop with his briefcase, and sort of that, I just realized, they're just people going to work. You know, they have a job like you and I wanted to put that feeling in the movie, and even the Pope ends up in a, just bring them down from a pedestal. Even the Pope ends up in that bag in the back of the ambulance, and it's also he's going to have flaws and mistakes and things he regrets, and so I wanted to make it feel like that. And just maybe the final shot, that's also because we were talking about Lizzie. And there was a picture, the 3 nuns in white walking out.
I was going to ask you about that.
They were, it was basically a picture that Lizzie showed me and said, look, I think, because our nuns are all blue, but maybe there's a space for these white nuns somewhere. And I thought, yeah, we should do this in the final shot. And I love that process of collaboration where people around you in your crew, no matter who it is, comes with an idea or with a suggestion. And you go like, this is great. We should do this. And it just makes the movie, or the umbrellas was also something I talked to Lizzie about. And now everyone says like, I love the umbrella shot. Yeah. And it's just kind of this collaboration that she said like, you know what? I think it's raining, so they should have umbrellas. I don't want them to be black. I want them to be white. And I said, that'd be great. Let's make them white.
And there's one guy that doesn't have the umbrella.
That's John Lithgow.
How is it?
Because he's broken.
Is that true? I thought it was a big statement. I thought maybe it was Rafid, like he's a lone person that defied, everybody else's.
No, John is like everything is like no one, he's not accepted anymore. So
yeah, got it. I worked with John, and what an experience.
Delight, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. This is an amazing film. I look
Thank you very much.
Having seen how it
Thank you.
Nicely done, Eric.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America